Hello and welcome to Turning Lewks, a beauty and cosmetics podcast. I am your host, Darren, and welcome to episode 10 of the podcast. This month we have the amazing Axel on, who was on Glow Up season 5, as well as an amazing prosthetics and creative artist. It's going to be a really amazing chat, so let's get into it. Hi, thank you for joining on the podcast. How are you doing?
I'm alright. How are you?
I'm good. Do you want to just quickly introduce yourself, who you are, where people might know you from, etc., etc.?
I'm Axel. I'm 160,000 years old, and I'm from the moon. Um, no,
Fair, yeah, that's valid.
I'm Axel. Was recently on Glow Up season 5, even though that happened a year ago. I'm a makeup artist, special effects makeup artist.
How did your journey in makeup actually begin then? Because you said like your special effects makeup artist. Was it in that? Was it in drag?
Yeah,
Was it in
I mean,
general
I think
beauty?
no, I think I was a nerd growing up, so I didn't really have much of a connection to makeup or beauty at all. It wasn't until I started watching Drag Race, such a boring storyline, but watching people kind of like transform their face with just using makeup and making people seem more feminine or more masculine. And I don't know, I was just kind of taken with the way that you could like transform someone's face with just using the illusion of makeup. So that got me interested in that. Then obviously I started in drag, started experimenting a lot, and then that quickly went into makeup and just kind of went everywhere after that. Did everything, and now I'm just more focusing on like creature and concept stuff because I realized that that's the most fun for me. So
Was there a queen that like inspired you the most from Drag Race back in the day?
Actually, you know what? One of the drag queens from, I mean, if you're talking about Drag Race specifically, Acid Betty comes to mind. Acid Betty, I used to be obsessed with when I was younger, which is probably why I'm such an airbrush user these days, because she uses an airbrush and that's how she manages to do all these like crazy drag looks. So yeah, and seeing that, I was like, that's a bit of me. I'll just take that, and that'll be my personality for the next 6 years.
I can see that for you. So like bright colors, bit
Yeah.
different, bit wacky. It's very, very you. And like you said that you like started in drag up in Scotland. How was that?
Yeah.
Because it was obviously a very different time. It was pre-Drag Race UK. Yeah, what was that like?
I mean, when I started drag, back in the Victorian era, I there was only one show you could go to, and it was in Glasgow, and it happened once a month, and it was kind of fun because Drag Race hadn't really started up, but like it just meant that people would have to make all their own stuff, do their own wigs. We all looked a mess, like we all looked crazy, but it was good fun because people put a lot of effort into their looks, and it was just about having fun and being silly while also kind of looking fierce for what we were working with. So that's what it was like when I first started.
And did you enjoy doing it?
Yeah, of course I enjoyed doing it. I loved it. It was a thrill back in the day to do it, and then you know I think for me, it got to a point where I stopped being creative and it became about the money more than anything. And then the work that I'd have to do in drag wasn't particularly creative. So I had to kind of come away from it because I wasn't really doing anything that I really wanted to do anymore. So,
And see, while you were doing drag, were you still like working on like the like special effects, the
yeah.
prosthetic kind of stuff at the same time too?
Yeah. I mean, prosthetics have always been a bit of a challenge because they're very, for me anyway, they're quite challenging to do. Like to apply and to paint, not so much, but to actually make them is still something that I'm still trying to figure out to this day. When I was doing drag, it was more about turning looks within drag, which sometimes I would try and do prosthetics with. But prosthetics are not necessarily prosthetics, but creating creatures and characters. That's always been the goal for me. So I did that within drag as well.
Is there like a favorite kind of creature you like to make, or is it just anything and anything?
Um, I don't know. I like to experiment with as much as I can. I mean, of course, like if I had the ability to make these massive Star Trek uh, aliens and monsters and things like that, of course I'd be doing that every week. But sometimes you're not. Sometimes you don't have that much money and studio space and equipment, so you are kind of like stuck with what you've got around you, which sometimes is a bit of foam clay and some cotton and latex, which we've all seen from the show. But no, I think when I think about what I like to do, I think anything that's animalistic and anything that is bright and colorful. So animals that have fun, interesting markings on them, I take huge inspiration from, and color is essentially, which is such a boring answer. Like, oh, I'm inspired by color. Ugh. But it's true. Like vibrant colors, and specifically certain color combinations. Because I feel like we've seen every color combination at this point, but sometimes when you see something that's slightly new or different that you've not really seen before, or having colors being arranged on the face in a way that you've not really seen before, that's exciting to me. I find that quite fun.
Goes back to the Acid Betty kind of vibe as well, isn't it? Like
Yeah,
patterns, bright colors, all a
yeah,
circle.
shapes and colors.
And you recently recreated Trixie's makeup. How was
Yeah.
doing that?
Yeah, it was fine. I was kind of working with a couple of products, and it's been a while since I've done drag makeup, so it wasn't perfect, but it was good fun. She has quite the face, so I thought I'd be aces at it, but I still feel like it didn't look that much. I mean, it looked like Trixie, but it looked like Axel did Trixie. You know what I mean? Like you can see bits of me in there that I didn't quite manage to get rid of completely. But
I think that's the thing with Trixie's face is that one, she makes it look so easy to do, and it's like actually it's not. But also, like,
doing
it was
it, so she better be good at it. Like,
yeah, true. And obviously, you saw she was on your season of Glow Up, right?
yes, she
You
was.
judged, yes. How was being judged by Miss Tracy Mattel?
I thought it was hysterical that one of her critiques to me was that it needed to be more beautiful. Now, I'm not saying that Trixie's not beautiful, she's gorge, but she is crazy looking. And I thought when I designed the look that I was going to do, first of all, which by the way, I thought I was like being revolutionary when I came up with the frame thing. I was like, the girlies are gonna have it. They're gonna gag. They're never gonna see this coming. And then as soon as I got home after filming, I went online, and then all of a sudden, all these photographs of people that have done similar looks with the frame in that, I'm like, oh, I must have like subconsciously seen some of these like years ago and just been like, oh, renamed it as my own idea. But I was so disappointed because I'm like, oh. And then when it went out, people were like, oh yeah, no, it's not that original idea. And I'm like, oh, god damn it. But it was supposed to be really expressive, really bizarre. It wasn't supposed to really make any sense other than the fact of like, I don't know, more drag and to be as abstract as possible with it. Because I think that's, for me, the core of what drag was for me, was to like push the boundaries and to have this kind of like no box limit, like everything could go anywhere, there's no rules or anything. Yeah, getting a critique from her being like, yeah, I just think there should be more beauty in it, I was like, okay, didn't see that coming from Trixie, but fair enough. But no, other than that, she was fantastic. We had a conversation that didn't go online, didn't go on the show, which I thought was really funny, but they for some reason cut it. And in that conversation we had I felt like there was a nice decent rapport between us, and she was really lovely, she was really sweet, clearly was just like really happy to just be there and experience what she's experienced. But yeah, no, she was great.
Because I feel like that challenge also was quite an interesting one, the one beforehand, because you were doing like the Mac Viva Glam thing as well, weren't you, that week? Where if you didn't do well, punishment was Jack would then go and do the makeup instead. I was like, lol, okay.
Yes, yeah, that was a thing. Yeah, it's very, very nerve-wracking, to be honest. I feel like the drag when I should have been just like, should have knocked out the park and like wiped the floor with people, but I think that I was so spooked from being in the bottom the week before that I was just like, you've got to just make it through this. You've got to just like not do the worst, which is the worst kind of mindset to have going into competitions, by the way. Like, you need to go in there thinking that you're just going to like win every single time. But yeah, that was quite intense.
What was it like, your like journey experience on Glow Up overall? Because I mean, you made it to the final, didn't you? You were a finalist. So yeah, what was it like?
I would describe it somewhat of, have you ever tripped up and fell down a hill?
Yes, Jack and Jill.
It really, that's what it felt like. It felt like I was running in the beginning, and then I tripped up, and then I rolled down the rest of the hill, and then just made it there at the end. because that's how I felt. Because I felt like the beginning of the season I was doing quite well, and everybody was like, "Oh, Saffron's gonna win," and I'm like, "Not if I have something to say about it." Like, um, and then obviously halfway through, I stumbled quite a bit, landed myself on the bottom, and then after that, it was just about like trying to get my shit together and trying to like stay like not in this kind of like super negative like everything sucks and I'm going home like mindset. And then I felt like towards like the very end of the finale, I managed to like pull myself together and like finish strong. So it almost feels like people that like do gymnastics where they start off like they do their little routine and they start really strong, except they would just like fall over and mess up, and then they just kind of they finish at the end and they go. That was me.
Feels like you had a real big battle with your inner saboteur, as Rue would say.
Oh, shut up. Yes, I did. It was it was an amazing experience. I will say this. I think while you're there, you don't really understand what you're going through, but like after you finished and you look back on it, you understand what an incredible experience it actually was and how much enjoyment you actually got from it. I think the hardest thing, and I think most people will agree with me that have been on the show, the hardest thing to do while you're there is to stay present and to be just to acknowledge where you are and what you're doing, because you get so caught up in the competition of being like, okay, I have 2 wins, I need to get another win if I want to win the whole season, or like oh, I've been in the bottom last week, I've got to make sure that this, and you get so focused in on just like making it through the next day that you don't really sit back and think, I'm in a fucking penthouse right now, like I'm doing all these sorts of things. I'm managing, I'm going on film sets, I'm meeting celebrities, people that I've looked up to for years. Like, I'm going to be shown on a national and then international platform. You just don't think about these things. You're just constantly thinking like, I'm at work right now and I need to get this done. And you shouldn't. You should stay present and be like, this is incredible. I'm so happy to be here.
And what made you apply 5 times to be on the show?
Yes, 5 times. Yeah. Oh God. So I specifically remember my friend Gail that I went to college with sent me this like Facebook notification of back in 2018 of this random like new TV show for makeup artists that was popping up. And I remember looking at it and I was like, looks like fun. This totally up my alley. I could be doing this. And I sent in an application. And the application back then was a lot more strenuous. Like there was lots more levels to it. I had like several phone interviews. I had to film a reel of myself or things like that, and not a reel, but like a video. And then obviously you went through the audition process on top of that. And I got all the way to the end. And throughout the audition process, everybody was constantly like, Axel's gonna get it. Everyone like was like, Axel's gonna win, or not win, but like Axel's gonna be on the show. It's just a matter of who else is going with Axel. And I made friends with like Tiffany, Belinda, obviously Ellis and I have known each other for years. Even like Matt, Shu, Lee, and that was the group that I on the one of the audition days I was like huddled up with. And yeah, then they gave me the call and I hadn't got it, and I was devastated. Like I was like down in it, and I was like, this is the worst day of my life. But it took everybody else by surprise as well. And then I thought, oh well, season 2, that'll be the one. And then I had a few interviews for that, didn't make any for season 3. I had one interview. Season 4, they didn't even contact me. And by season 4, I had started going and studying something new at uni. And I was like, you know what? Fair enough. I'll take the season 4 as a sign. I'm out. We're done. Clearly, they're not really interested in me. Maybe I'm not like interesting enough. Maybe they've had too many people like me. Doesn't matter. I'm doing something completely different. I'm happy. I'm moisturized. I'm in my lane. Like I'm thriving. And then season 5's auditions went up. I looked at them. I was like, nah, not doing it. Don't care anymore. Whatever. And a couple of weeks went by and they sent me a message being like, hey Axel, have you ever thought about applying for Glow Up? And I was like, well, they've never sent a message before. So I was like, yeah, okay, fine. I sent one in. And then for some reason, this was this was the season that they had me. So a year later, this is where we're at.
What were you studying at uni during season 4?
So I was studying computer arts to eventually go into games and to create. Well, I wanted to be a concept artist for characters and creatures for games. Also, was throwing up the idea of becoming a 3D artist.
Have you ever like merged the two together in terms of like creating these 3D designs and then making them on yourself?
I never got too far with my 3D work, but I do use both 3D and 2D, well, 3D modeling and 2D illustration to kind of conceptualize looks. You know, like sometimes when I'm drawing something out, if I can't really figure out how it's going to be shaped, then I'll load it up into like a 3D program and I'll sculpt it instead. And that's when I'll figure stuff out.
How do you come up with the ideas for those kind of the creatures and the different kind of molds that you're wanting to make and stuff? Where does all that come from?
When it comes to my sculpting and prosthetic work, it's all quite rudimentary right now. Like it's all quite beginner. It's not necessarily anything too like detailed or anything. It's like I'm creating brow pieces or chin pieces or nose pieces. It's nothing major, but I think inspiration just comes from other artists, really. You know, I think a lot of the time I have to look at other people's sculpting work to be like, well, we'll take bits of that, we'll take bits of that, and we'll push that together, and that's how. But I wouldn't say that anything that I create, well, prosthetic wise, has been particularly like, I don't know, original. Like it's all very much the same.
I also really like the fact that you show your process on Instagram. You'll sit there, you'll do a live while you're making something, or you'll do like your stories showing how it's either worked or hasn't worked.
There seems to be a lot more of that hasn't worked. One of my molds exploded.
But like, yeah, why do you do that? Why do you show the process online?
I mean, it's just content, isn't it? Like that's really what it comes down to, is that I think in this day and age you kind of need to be on it with making sure that people know what you're up to. And I think also some people find it quite interesting. Not all the time. I would say that people find it more interesting when I post like full looks, obviously. But I don't know, like if it can help somebody else out, or if somebody else is interested in what I'm doing, then it's always nice to share, I suppose.
I think that's also the really cool thing, like showing that process, showing if it doesn't work or it does work, but also like you're saying at a kind of rudimentary level as well, to make it makes it more accessible to others. You've done content on like, oh, if you don't have X, Y, and Z, or if you're beginning, X, Y, and Z can be really expensive, so use these things because it's cheaper, like was it cornstarch and whatever.
Yeah.
Those different ways, it makes it accessible. But I also think you don't see many people, especially from Glow Up, and if you're a fan of Glow Up and you're following a lot of those people, you don't see much of them kind of posting the stuff that you're posting, like the prosthetic-y kind of side of things. I mean, most people when they go and Glow Up, they'll do a prosthetic and they're like, it's the first time I've ever done a prosthetic. You're like, great time to begin. But
the one downside to Glow Up, I think, is that it's, and like a lot of my beauty friends that are in Glow Up will fight me tooth and nail on this, but I just don't think it's as varied as much. It's heavily influenced on the beauty side of things, and the audience is very like notably aware of that, because as soon as any prosthetics go on, people are all like up in arms on Twitter, yeah, and like, there is Axel again making creatures, as if that's not like what I do, like, but yeah, when it comes to people that want to do prosthetics, you always have that one token person that is like the prosthetic person, you know, the person that wants to do prosthetics or things like that. And I think you have people that like to do prosthetics. So like for us, we had Saffron, Rue, myself, and then in past seasons it was like, I don't know, Ryan and Chris and whatever. But I think it's very rare that you actually get some people that want to be like creature designers. Like there's only been like a handful of us that have been on the show that do creature stuff. Like Steph from season 1 is an amazing creature person. Ryan's doing a lot of cool stuff in uni. Yeah, there are more, but my brain's kind of going blank. But yeah, that side of the makeup world is not really represented too well in Glow Up. It's and when prosthetics do happen, like it's often like flat mold or something small and simple, because obviously everybody needs to be able to do it. I think the coolest one they've done so far would have been season 4 when they got to do Doctor Who. I would have killed to be on that.
What would you? I can't remember the challenge, but if you could be on a Doctor Who episode or doing the makeup on a Doctor Who episode, what kind of creature would you want to do?
The Sycorax comes to mind. Do you remember them?
Just had to Google what the Sycorax was. That's the one where Doctor Who loses his hand, or
Yeah.
David loses his hand. The
Oh,
first
right,
one
oh.
after he regenerates.
Yeah.
The Thief and the Skull.
So that is the Sycorax, but that's not what I'm thinking of. What's it called? What is it called? Basically, Christopher Eccleston, I believe, or David Tennant fought a big spider monster.
Right, yeah, from the episode with Donna, like the first episode where she was introduced.
Yes.
The Christmas special.
Rachnos.
Yeah, nice, yeah.
Would have killed to be on that. That would have been so epic.
I think the ones that I liked more recently were the 2 like jewel-looking ones. It was with Jodie, like the pink and the blue, like scully jewel-looking people. They looked cool.
I've not seen any Jodie's season.
Misogynist.
I watched about 2 episodes and I was like, I'm not a big fan of this.
Fair, you hate women, it's fine.
Yeah, that's it. No, I actually really I like Jodie. I think she's great. But I think the writing on these seasons, I was like, poor Jodie, she's doing a great job, but this is some bull stories that they're pulling out their arsehole here, babes.
Back to what we're here for, Turning Lewks makeup, fun times. What did you learn while you were at Glow Up that you kind of like used since? Has there been much that you've learned from the show?
I think I learned mostly things about myself. I learned that I'm a very negative human being, and that I really struggle to see the positivity of things. Everybody was constantly like giving me into trouble for it so often, because we'd be going into a beauty challenge and I'm like, well, probably gonna be in the bottom for this one. Oh well. And everyone's like, Axel, shut up, it's not even happened yet. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm probably not gonna do well on this. And then I actually ended up doing not too badly. Well, unless you're talking about episode 2, in which case, yeah, I did kind of off that one.
Fully the Trinity K. Bonet of your season, then, just being like, I hate everything. This is awful. Everyone hates you. Or the Nina Benina Brown.
Yeah, it's a really hard thing. I think everybody has the same thoughts. The thing is that I just vocalize mine. And I think when I was doing the show, I was trying to be as real about it as possible, being like, this is my strengths, these are not my strengths, I'm probably not going to do well in this one, which is fine. Doesn't necessarily mean that I'm not going to try my absolute best to do well in it, but that's just the real. And to be honest, as much as it is like a pessimistic view, it is the truth. So I don't necessarily regret saying what I said, but I can understand why it's annoying for other people to hear it, because everybody else is in the same mindset and they're all trying to stay positive. And I'm like, well, we're all probably going to like fail and die one day. So like, what's the point?
Love that. I feel like that. I give that energy too. You can ask like, why is she's constantly like, oh yeah, the miserable one. Yeah, the one that's going to bring you to the ground. Just keeping it real.
Realism, keeping it real.
Yeah. If there was a All-Stars Glow Up, would you do it? And who would you want to go up against if you did want to do it?
Here's the thing about Glow Up All-Stars, right? If I'm going to go back, I want a good reason to go back. If it was like you won like an actual prize, like money, and Glow Up right now, it's created specifically for amateurs. But when you do Glow Up, come off of Glow Up, and then you're in the industry for a while, you're not really an amateur anymore. So they would have to come up with a way to get us all back in for a good reason, because the prize right now is, a career, but we've already got a career now. So what can you offer us on top of that? Let's say that they asked me like a year from now or whatever, and they had a decent reason to go back. I think I would go back, and I think I would like to be up against Lisa comes to mind, first off. I think James and Dolly also come up in my head. I'd love for Ashley to come back. Ashley from season 2, she was the first out. Yeah, I'd basically love all the Scottish people back. Bring back all the Scots. Actually, let's just do an entire season with just Scots. Would love to see Adam back. Would love to see Young Chin, but she won, so who cares? Love to see On May. Would love to see myself. And then I think I'd like to see. I say that I would like to see the creature designers back as well, but then they would be in direct competition with me. So I think not. But I think from like a viewer standpoint, it would be cool to see Ryan, Steph, Chris, myself, all in one season as well. Am I missing anybody else? Yeah, I think those are the ones specifically. I'm not too sure if I would want many people from my season because I've already competed against them. But I'd like to compete against others, yeah, for sure. And Paige, I'd like to see Paige back because she's really changed up the game from where she was at. I'd love to see her growth from season 1.
That's cool. It's also like it's like the way you thought about it as well. Sounds like you're more like you'd be good at casting people.
Yeah, maybe I should just take the producer's job.
You did the Snapchat scare people's fears and you turned them into their fears thing, right?
Face your fears. Yes, I did.
What was that like?
It was fantastic. I loved it. Honestly, like Fear at Avon Valley in Bristol and Face Your Fears were the two highlights of my year of 2023, other than, getting on Glow Up. Yeah, no, I really, that was a very tough show to do. The moment that they said go to the moment where they ended filming was 14 days. So I had essentially 10 days before I'd have to then pack everything up and go to Leeds. And I had 10 days of conceptualizing, creating prosthetics, doing everything I needed to do. And then, of course, things fall out, things change. So I had to do more looks on top of that. Don't get me wrong, really, really enjoyable to do all of it. Quite the rush. It was just a really fun project. Everybody on Channel 4 is great. They treated me really nicely, really lovely, got on with the producers really well. It was just a very, very chilled experience when it came to filming, and all the makeups went reasonably well. So yeah, no, it was fantastic. Really, really enjoyed it.
What was it like turning people into their fears? Like, what was like, yeah, like seeing someone, like you're putting someone into their biggest anxiety inducing thing in front of them. Yeah. What was that like as a makeup artist when a lot of times you're kind of not really doing that?
I took it as kind of like, okay, so we're making scary things. And I had a great time. And one of the makeups that we did was a prawn. The first prosthetic that I made for the prawn, they literally took one look at it and went, that looks amazing, but please don't bring that into the studio because we're trying to make them face their fears. We're not trying to traumatize them. Because it was like this full facial prosthetic with like all these little beady eyes popping out and like teeth and like fangs and stuff. And they're like, it looks epic, but we really can't have that. Like, we don't have the budget to put people in therapy. So, but everybody that was on the show, like, it was a fear they had, but it was kind of like a type of fear. It wasn't like something that was like deep rooted, obviously, because then that'd be a bit problematic, to say the least. But I think everybody that did it had a lot of fun. All the reactions were really, kind of silly and not entirely serious. It was just, they were a wee bit spooked, mostly disgusted, I think, a lot of the time. But overall, I think everybody that did the show actually had a great time doing it.
And it also kind of, I guess, really shows that kind of power of makeup as well. Like you said, that transformation, but also getting people to face their yucks.
Yeah, pretty much. The guy who had to be turned into an egg was so funny. He was so funny. It was so stupid. But that's what I live for. I love doing stuff like that. So
best old Humpty Dumpty over there.
Indeed.
What would be the thing you'd get turned into? What's your biggest yuck, fear thing if you were on the show?
This is something that I don't like talking about too much. But I'll say whatever. So I have an extreme phobia, like not like a little bit of a phobia, like an extreme phobia of jewelry and small shiny metal objects.
Fair. I'm trying to imagine what a look that could be that would be a gold look like that, other than just surrounding you in chains.
If somebody put me in prosthetic makeup that had lots of piercings with gold stuff in it, that would be the fear. That would make me feel really, really uncomfortable. But it's such like a lame fear, if you know what I mean. Like it's just kind of like, oh, because some people are afraid of like lions or like snakes or like heights, things that can kill you. But a piece of gold metal, whoa!
What's the favorite kind of thing you've worked on, or freak that you've done? Anything wise, Big questions here.
Yeah, that is quite a large question. Oh, I'll tell you what I really enjoyed doing. So like there's looks that I do all the time, like on Instagram, and there's so many looks that I've done over the years that are all kind of like roughly around the same. Because not gonna lie, I think I'm epic. But but I think something that I really enjoy doing, not necessarily just with the makeup. The makeup was cool too, but the experience of it was working at Fear Avon Valley in Bristol, which is a skier attraction that I work on now that I'm. It seems that what would you call it, a resident MUA over there. So I get to do that this year as well, which I'm really excited about. But the makeup on there, I got to really experiment. They allowed me to have like my own studio that I could work in, and just they gave me lots of products to work with, for making prosthetics and things like that. So I got to experiment a lot there. And, I got to design creatures every day, and they wanted, we did a lizard person for last year, and they were like, don't be afraid to do whatever you want every single day. So we experimented with his makeup literally every day, changing the colors and whatnot. So that to me was a lot of fun. Working on Max was his name. Was a lot of fun.
Oh, that's also like a lot of work having to like do those scare nights every day.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's I mean, I think so this year it's going to be a little bit more streamlined, but last year it was like you were there for 3 weeks. I took 6 days off in between because we had like a 6-day gap, but I think it was somewhere between 10 and 13 dates that you need to be there, and it is like one after the other, and it's like you wake up one day, you get yourself ready, you go into the studio around like, I don't know, 12 o'clock, maybe 10, somewhere around there. You run all the prosthetics you need for the day, and then at 3 o'clock everybody shows up, and then you've got 3 hours to do 110 makeups, not you specifically, but between 3 other artists. So you're doing like 33 each, 34. I never got that much because I was given the street team, which meant that my makeups took a little bit longer. So mine were always like somewhere between 11. I think the most I managed to do was maybe like 20. But some of these makeups, with the airbrush, you're like, next, next. Like I was doing makeups like under a minute, like it was nuts.
I guess it also means that you end up becoming quite the pro at using like an airbrush and doing those
Oh,
things.
it was like a really intense crash course with airbrushing. I feel like I'm a pro now. Like I felt pretty good on the show, but nowadays,
One question that I also ask everyone is, what was the first piece of makeup that you bought or was bought for you?
Oh, I bought a lot actually. So I spoke about it a little bit on the show, but I grew up in like quite a religious household. And this was like a decade ago. So my parents were not as liberal as what they are now. And it's not that I think that they would have had a hard time. They would have eventually got it, but drag queens were not in the mainstream. And at that time, people would still confuse drag queens with trans women and that kind of situation. So I think I didn't want to like tell them that I wanted to do drag because they had no education on it, and it would have just caused so much like guff, I felt at the time. Maybe that's a little harsh for me to say because my parents are great, we've all seen them on the show, but yeah, at the time I wasn't comfortable with coming out to them. So, well, not coming out, but like telling them that I wanted to do drag because I had been out. I went to my friend's house and we literally spent like £100 of my like student loan, and we bought all the cheap makeup, like a cheap drag outfit and a cheap wig, and like I bought all of it at the same time. So it was like Max Factor stick foundation when they did them. It was like the Lorac palette from Amazon, the multicolored one that had all the chalky, horrible eyeshadows in it. I think I got like a Max Factor eyeliner, some very, very small lashes. Snazaroo cream white. That was another one. That was my highlight. And
Got on face paint for your highlight.
Oh yeah, fully. I think that was it. I think I bought a beauty blender and a lip liner and a lipstick that was like terrible. They were awful lipsticks.
Have you ever like looked back at any of your old drag or old makeup in general and kind of thought, oh, I want to like do recreations of them, like with your skills that you have now?
Oh, of course. Like I think about it all the time. The problem is that like nowadays I just don't have the same stuff anymore to do like drag stuff. Like back in like when I was 20, I had like boxes of fabric and tons of wigs and tons of stuff. But then when I came away from drag, I threw a lot of that out or gave a lot of it away. So I just don't have the same stuff. I'm also living right now with my aunt and uncle, which is fantastic, but they don't have a lot of space to do like photo shoots and things like that. So anything that I post online that's just of me is going to be like here and up. So I can't really do like a full thing anymore. But I'd love to recreate a lot of stuff that I did around like 2017 or something like that. That was because I think I created a lot of really cool drag looks back then. They're a bit rough around the edges looking at them now, but they were good. They were like fun ideas.
So, what's the future looking like for you in terms of your makeup? Is there anything you want to be learning? Anything you want to be trying and doing? Any collabs you want to be doing? Because you've done collabs with people before, right?
I do want to do more collabs. I'd love to do one with On Me. I'd also like to collab with an old friend of mine called Millie, who has a TikTok account. What's her name? She's like a cosplayer thing, but she's very silly, very funny, very Scottish. I think she'd be good fun. But I'm always open to collabs. I think for the future of my makeup, though, I want personally, I want to teach myself more about prosthetic makeup. So I want to learn how to do things properly, because all of my prosthetic makeup just ends up being a wee bit skewy. So I want to learn how to do that and really become very technically aware of how things are done. But as for career wise, I would really love to do more entertainment stuff. Like I loved working with Channel 4. So I'd love to do more things like that. I have a small idea right now that's cooking to possibly have my own web series, maybe. And then in terms of industry, I really want to teach more. I'm having a lot of fun teaching. I would love to do more master classes for like drag or more crazy types of makeup. Yeah. And then I'd also like to try and break into the film industry. But as we've all seen so far, the film industry seems to be quite the struggle bus. So we will see. We'll see about that.
Well, I think we will leave it there because we have actually now been recording for almost an hour. But thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
And that was the chat we had with Axel. I hope you really, really enjoyed it. I did. It was really great actually getting to chat to them about their makeup artistry and their history and their passions and why they're in the industry that they're in. It was really cool. Now, let's get into some beauty news. And this is kind of one of my favorite times of the year. It's Fashion Week time. Around the world, we've seen Paris's Couture Fashion Week, New York Fashion Week, now most recently London Fashion Week on the time of filming this. So let's dive into some of the trends that we've seen during these fashion weeks and see what we think of them. Now, we can't talk about Fashion Week trends without kicking off with Pat McGrath's glass skin at Paris Couture Fashion Week for Maison Margiela. Don't know if I'm saying that right. Sorry if I'm not. It took social media by storm. It was everywhere. Everyone was recreating it. Everyone was trying to tell us the different kind of products that she used. Ended up being that from what she said on her Instagram Live was a mixture of peel off face mask and some water to create that really glass skin look on like quite 90s, 20s, pale skin, thin eyebrows, but then funky colored blush and heavy eye makeup. And then this, super glass, wet looking porcelain doll skin. Amazing, groundbreaking, really cool. I just kind of wish that Pat McGrath would bring this kind of energy that she does to her makeup artistry, especially for these kind of runways and stuff, to her products, because her brand just isn't giving that kind of creativity. She's mentioned that she's coming out of a product that everyone can use to recreate the kind of glass skin that she had created there. But I'm like, why is it not out for the same time that you've launched this? Like MAC did it with their new matte lipsticks or their reformulation of their matte lipsticks to be using at Fashion Week as then promo for this product. Why are you creating a trend that everyone's now recreating? By the time this product comes out, no one's going to care, as sad as it is. So that's really, really sad. But moving on to other trends, I'm going to probably start off with New York Fashion Week, then get into London, but there's a lot of crossover between the two. The glass skin trend carried on in New York Fashion Week, both with Charlotte Tilbury for Christian Serrero and Puma with Ismaya French. They both adorned this glass skin look, which is really, really interesting, cool to see. Obviously wasn't the same as Pat's. It was more using of like highlighter and dewy makeup rather than this kind of layer on top. But we saw that kind of carrying on through, which probably means that that's going to be a big trend for this year. I'm not a huge glowy skin person. I've got too many pores and fine lines and things like that. I like more matte satin looking skin. So I'm kind of over the super dewy foundations basically. But that's me. Another trend that we've kind of constantly been seeing that's kind of been sticking around is the 90s kind of grunge vibes. So we saw that on some of the runways, is super smudged 90s grunge, lived in glam kind of makeup with Jason Wu, Stila Cosmetics at Pat Bow, MAC at Hemlet Young in New York, all trying to do these 90s grungy looks. I love that kind of aesthetics. It's lived in, messy kind of makeup that you just isn't too perfect, isn't too pristine. I find it when I try and do that myself, though, it end up diving in too much. It ends up looking too pristine because I'm like, oh, this isn't the same as this, or this isn't as grungy as I'd like it, and then it ends up getting too perfected. So really trying to like hold back and stop when it comes to grunge makeup, I can find quite hard to do, but I do like the aesthetic and I love the look of grunge makeup. That also we did see carrying on into London Fashion Week with like some dark smoky eyes, especially for the Frollo and Hoosan Dang runways as well in London. Another big trend that's been popping up a lot around both in London and New York, and kind of it's almost the antithesis of 90s grunge, is this like 60s inspired makeup, blue eyeshadow, bold lashes, thick eyeliner, this kind of doll-like beauty. We've seen in a lot of runways. We saw it with Marc Jacobs. Bobby Brown did it with Song Jong-wan, Alison Olivier, and Too Faced. All were doing these 60s inspired kind of looks, which is good to see. Something different popping up. And yeah, interested to see how that goes with the 60s inspired, like one eyeshadow that's kind of from the lid to your eyebrows, which is just blue, thick eyelashes, thick eyeliner, quite pulled back skin. Interesting. Like to see where it goes. And it's very different from the kind of 90s grunge, which is very messy. This is very pristine and very polished. Think Twiggy, that kind of vibe. They're very different vibes of makeup. So yeah, cool to see that these are the kind of big things that are coming out of the runways. And that's our big news feature this week for this month, is kind of looking at the big trends in the fashion runways for 2024. Were there any makeup trends that you saw that I didn't just talk about that you were really interested in? Do let us know in the comments and over on Instagram. What were some of your favorite runways as well? So many cool runways, so many good looks. So much of me wishing I had money to be able to afford to buy designer and couture things, but alas, I can't, and I'll just have to recreate it on the budget that I have, and that is where creativity comes into it. Thank you so much for listening to this month's podcast. Make sure to follow us on Instagram, on LinkedIn, on TikTok, on the podcast app itself, wherever you're listening to. Make sure you subscribe, like, share the podcast if you liked it, and I will see you again next month. Bye.